Patriots Pulse post-game show presented by Sonic Boom. I'm your host, John Sarianides, and I'm joined by my partner, a man that I honestly could say I could talk football any time of the day with him, but even we wanted to go to bed a little before we're going to go to bed. But thanks to Shane Steichen, we're not. Patriots Colts, first preseason game of the season, ends in a tie, 13-13. And John, let's just jump right into it, my friend. Your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, less entertaining than the joint practice we were at a couple days ago. But look, there's some things to take away from this from the Patriots' perspective. We saw them. Kayshon Boutte played in this game, which, maybe a little surprising to some people. I know it was early on. He didn't play much. Tommy DeVito, a lot of ups and downs. I thought first-round pick Caleb Lomu looked pretty good. Had a couple of mistakes.
I thought he held his own.
Yeah, I thought he held his own. I thought, he had the penalty for the man downfield there. His last third down snap on the first drive, he got beat off the edge. It didn't lead to a sack, but got beat off the edge. But on the whole, I thought he did well. KJ Britt, another guy that did well, but then some negatives. I thought it was a poor special teams day, poor special teams evening as well. Poor discipline penalties evening as well. So there's things to take away from all sides here, but most of all, just Shane Steichen seemed to never want this game to end.
No, he did not. And look, I think you bring up a good point in terms of the undisciplined play. I think, as a coach, we're always looking for reasons, even in wins, we're always looking for things to nitpick in film the next day that we can harp on. And I think there's going to be plenty for Mike Vrabel and his staff tomorrow to harp on with this game. Look, it's a preseason game. It's your first preseason game of the year. It's the first game of the year. You know that it's not going to be clean. There's going to be some penalties. There's going to be some drops. There are going to be some mistakes. For me, the concerning thing, John, is Borregales. I mean, Andy Borregales misses 3 kicks. Granted, you can make the argument they were long distance. He misses a 49-yarder there at the end that would have won him the game. That's my biggest concern. Yeah, it's annoying when you have 2 offensive linemen go downfield on a pass play. You should know better. But Borregales missing those 2 kicks, or those 3 kicks, I should say, is a real concern for me because he hasn't exactly been lights out from distance in practice, and it looks like that's carried over into games as we saw tonight.
And look, the first 2 56-yarder, 55-yarder, I get it, they're long kicks, but a 49-yarder in today's NFL is a very makeable field goal on a clear night. And look, maybe you want to blame the recently installed turf that is now, I guess, in compliance if you want, but this was a field goal unit that missed 3 field goals and forced the Patriots to burn a timeout early in the third quarter when they had 10 men on the field on a field goal they eventually made. Not a good night from them at all. And yeah, Borregales, a guy too. Go back to this time last year. Up and down in camp, there was a lot of debate of if they were going to keep him coming out of training camp last year. Struggled earlier in the year. Mike Vrabel was asked about it, said he was going to stick with him. Obviously, hits the game winner in Buffalo, has a good season overall, has the big kick in Denver as well in the AFC Championship game. But this was a guy that early last year had a lot of questions. I don't know if it's a summer and early season thing with him and it takes a while to get going, but yeah, not a good night for him and not what you're looking for too from not a rookie kicker anymore, right? And not a rookie operation there as well when it comes to the Patriots field goal unit.
Yeah, and I think again, it's when you look at preseason games, when you break them down afterwards, you're usually reaching for things because let's face it, most of your starters in your first preseason game don't play, so you don't really get a look at them. You don't evaluate them. We'll get a better picture of what they look like in game action next week against the Eagles next Saturday night. But when you have something like this where your kicker misses 3 kicks, he hasn't exactly been sharp at practice. You mentioned that even last year at this time, he wasn't very good at times. It's concerning, which brings up the next question, and we're not trying to stir the pot here. It's an honest question. If he struggles again this week at practice, and let's say he struggles next Saturday night, do you consider going out and trying to bring in a veteran kicker?
I wouldn't go that far yet. I'd give him a couple weeks because he does have the track record from all of last season there. But it's interesting they didn't really bring in any competition. Like we saw years, even with Adam Vinatieri, who just went in the Hall of Fame, and Stephen Gostkowski, where the Patriots might bring in another kicker just to have another guy there and just keep their kickers sharp. Didn't see that this summer. So I'm not going to go there yet. if it's another 2 weeks of this, then maybe they'll go there, but I'm not gonna go there yet.
Offensively, Tommy DeVito gets a start. He plays in the first half. I thought he played pretty well. I'll be honest with you, John. I've had some questions as to whether or not he could be their backup quarterback. I have some concerns. The other day when we were at the joint practice, you and I talked about that. We both kind of said the same thing. Yes, in theory, you're paying him as a backup. He should be your backup quarterback, but we both expressed some concerns. I thought he allayed some of those fears tonight. Had a pretty good night, pretty good first half, threw for 113 yards, passer rating of 112.3. I believe he completed 12 out of 15 passes, had the touchdown pass to Kyle Williams. What did you see from Tommy DeVito tonight?
I think you get the whole Tommy DeVito experience. I thought the touchdown pass to Kyle Williams was a really good throw. I thought he would have had another deep touchdown pass to Mac Hollins, but Hollins was
And
interfered
by the
with
way,
for the
not to cut you
Patriots.
off, he was 13 of 22. So I gave him a little too much credit there. But he was 13 of 22 for 138 yards and a touchdown pass. So correction. It's
And as I
preseason
was
for
saying,
us too.
would have had a second touchdown pass to Mac Hollins if Hollins hadn't been interfered with on their first drive. So you saw some really good throws, but then you saw, I mean, I don't at least 4 or 5 severely underthrown balls
Yeah.
in this game. One of them, the broadcast showed Vrabel getting on Kyle Williams' case to not coming back for, which I get, but still was a severely underthrown ball. Their final drive was basically stalled in the first half because he lost his accuracy. So you got the full Tommy DeVito experience, which if you're a Patriots fan like I am, you're projecting this out. Can you win a game or two with him this year? Yeah, I think so. Drake May's out for a month, you're in trouble, right? That's the Tommy DeVito experience. You got a few good series tonight and then a couple ones that weren't good.
Yeah. And look, I mean, again, obviously, if something were to happen to Drake May, they would change the way they played. There'd be a heavy emphasis on running the football, play action, 3-step, quick 5. They would try to get the ball out of his hands as quick as possible. But you brought up an interesting point about the misses tonight, too. As I mentioned, he went 13 of 22. There were 2 or 3 throws there. He missed Matt Collins on a couple where you're like, all right, man, you got to make that throw. You have plenty of time in the pocket. You made the right read. You set your feet. Now deliver the football on time. Put it in the right spot. He didn't do that. And I think even if you go as far back as when he played at Illinois, that was the knock on him. The arm talent is plus. It's there. He can fit the ball in tight quarters. He shows good timing and anticipation on certain throws. But then you see it even on the fade ball, one of the fade balls to Kyle Williams, he throws him inside instead of outside shoulder. Williams had separation, but he misses him. So he can be inconsistent, and that's the problem. And I think you hit the nail on the head. If he has to play for you, could you win a couple of games with this dude? Sure. You'd have to do a lot of things right. Run the football. Your defense would have to play really well. You'd have to have a good day at the office in terms of your special teams. But if he had to play for a prolonged stretch, yeah, you're in trouble. So, look, you're going to take tonight. Tonight I thought was positive for Tommy DeVito. I thought it was a good performance. You have to assume he's probably going to play at least a quarter, maybe even a half next week. If that's the case, then I think he's going to continue to improve and look better. What did you think of Baron Morton, the rookie quarterback out of Texas Tech tonight?
It just feels like he's got a long way to go. I mean, nothing was really terrible, but nothing really stood out so much. Just looked a little indecisive in the pocket on some of his throws. And then, yeah, look, you can see some of the arm talent there. You can see maybe what they were thinking when they drafted him. But I mean, you and I talked at draft time. If they're going to take a day 3 quarterback, why not think of Garrett Nussmeier or Cade Klubnik, guys with much better pedigrees?
Right.
You know,
And with more physical ability.
exactly. So, I mean, I think he's a guy that's going to be battling for a roster spot. I don't know if they'll keep 3 QBs. I'm not telling you he was terrible tonight, but I think there was a gap between DeVito and him.
No, I agree with you wholeheartedly. Finished 7 of 13 for 66 yards. Look, when they drafted Baron Morton, I love the intangibles. Captain of Texas Tech, well, highly respected, a revered high school quarterback in Texas. He led that team to the college football playoff last year. That was a defensive driven team, but he was the key cog to their offense. My concern, and I said this to you when they drafted him, and I saw it again tonight. I don't know if there's enough gas in the tank there when it comes to the arm talent. I'm not sure he can consistently make high-level NFL throws that you need your quarterback to be able to make. Those textbook throws that we judge quarterbacks on, right? Your comeback, your back shoulder fade, your post, your dig. Okay, those are the routes that quarterbacks in this league have to consistently be able to throw to not only be a starter, but to be a backup as well. I haven't seen it from him. I haven't seen it at camp. Certainly didn't see it tonight. I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, that was a wasted pick. He's not going to make the team. He sucks. But at the same time, you do see some physical limitations there. And that was kind of the knock on him. He has good enough arm talent to play in this league, but it's a consistency thing with the accuracy and the ball placement. We didn't see it tonight. The way I would play this if I'm the Patriots moving forward is you start Drake May next week. He plays, let's say, 2 to 4 series. Then you turn it over to DeVito for the rest of the half. Then you play Morton the entire second half. And honestly, John, I will let him play all 4 quarters against Cleveland, unless you want to see more from DeVito. Otherwise, let him play all 4 quarters because clearly you could see he needs the work.
Yeah, there's kind of some shades of Bailey Zappi there, like when Zappi went to Western Kentucky and set passing records, but then when you would see him, you'd say, all right, there's some positives here, but there are some limitations here. Like there's some shade, again, not exactly the same player, but there's some shades of that there. And I agree with you. I mean, I put May out there, and a lot of this is going to depend on they have not one, but 2 joint practices against Philly next week. If those go really well, then maybe I don't play May at all against Philly in the preseason game. If they're uneven or they don't go well, I put him out there for a series or 2 against the Eagles, give DeVito the rest of the half, give Morton the second half, and then, yeah, go into Cleveland. I'd still give DeVito some work against Cleveland just in that I think if he's going to be the backup guy, he needs some work. And May's had veteran backups up until this point. You'll get Jacoby Brissett, obviously, when he took over for him. Josh Dobbs is more established in the league than DeVito last year. So I want DeVito to get a little more work. So a lot of this, though, like I said, it's going to hinge on how well those joint practices go next week.
I think that's an interesting point, John, and I think it's a point that makes a lot of sense in my opinion because you're right. I think if Drake May has a good week next week and those 2 practices go well, I still think he plays next Saturday night. Oh, well, maybe doesn't play more than 2 series. But I also think, and that's why I said what I said in my previous point, you don't have to twist my arm against Cleveland to say Tommy DeVito should play at least a quarter. You're right. He probably should because, look, in a perfect world, you don't see him again the rest of the season, but you never know. Sure. We know with this league and the way it is. I do think, though, as we get to the end of August and we get to cut down day and the first week of September, if they're not impressed enough with Baron Morton, do they go out and they look for a veteran? And again, I'm not throwing him out. I'm not throwing the baby out with the bathwater here. I'm not saying that's it. He only attempted 13 passes. He's no good. You got to move on. But if you don't see enough from him this summer, do you at least entertain potentially entering the quarterback market in free agency if you don't think he's ready and he would benefit from a year on the practice squad?
Well, they're kind of in a tough spot with that because if you're going to keep 7 receivers and you want to keep 8, 9 offensive linemen, you can't have 3 quarterbacks, or at least you'd have to sacrifice somewhere else. So I'm not saying they won't, John. I think they would have been better served doing that 3-4 months ago, right? And so obviously they have confidence in DeVito and they're going to roll with him. I think Morton's a great candidate for the practice squad after. And, if something happens with May, then maybe bring in a veteran at that point. Again, the way their roster is, especially with Lomu, your first round pick, going to be your 6th offensive lineman, I think there's just only so many spots there. And I think one of the other things we can get to, the running back competition is really interesting to me behind Stevenson and Henderson. Who's going to be that third back? But that's another thing. How many running backs are you going to keep? That's been a really interesting competition. So I just don't see them keeping more than 2 quarterbacks on the active roster.
And to your point about the running backs, Jay Miller got the start, 14 carries, 55 yards. What did you think of the rookie's performance tonight?
I thought he was really good. And this is a guy you deserve some credit because when they brought him in at the draft, there was a lot of people saying they were skeptical of him. You said, no, there are a lot of physical tools there, even if they didn't always show themselves at Alabama. And I think you saw some of it tonight. Like, he is a big guy, but he moves well. Like he could hit the hole well. He can gain yards after contact, but he can make guys miss. I thought Larison was really good, especially in space. The pass he caught over the middle where he shook the linebacker, I think it was in the mid-second quarter. That was a really nice route. Like there's a real competition there for who that running back is going to be. Obviously, the team has brought in a couple guys, Jermichael Hasty this week, who's familiar face. I think Terrell Jennings was a guy they were really hoping for. It's his injury situation. I just wonder, will they be willing to go with a younger guy like Jam Miller, like Larison, because Henderson's only in his second year? If they are, I think it's going to be one of those two guys. If they want someone with a little more experience, maybe it'll be one of the newcomers.
As far as the receivers and the tight ends are concerned, we didn't really see much out of the receivers. Matt Collins had a couple of catches early in the game. He finished with 2 for 24. Efton Chisholm also had 3 catches for 20 yards. Eli Reardon had 1 catch for 8 yards. He also had a catch negated on a penalty. But I thought he looked pretty good from a route running standpoint, especially on those backside drags. I thought he looked pretty good. What did you think of the skill group overall, both the receivers and the tight ends?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up Eli Raritan because this is a guy that is going to be forced into having a bigger role than I think a lot of us expected in his rookie year. And I feel like he's gotten better and better at practice and training camp. I thought in the joint practice, he was arguably one of the best players on the field in that practice. And I thought tonight he did a pretty good job. I mean, look, again, you said he had the big catch that was negated by a penalty on their first drive. It looked like he belonged out there, held up okay in the run game at first glance. So he's going to have a bigger role than maybe we anticipated in May. And he looks like he's kind of taking to it so far, which has been good to see. But yeah, I thought he had a really good night overall, even if it didn't pop out on the stat sheet.
And of course, the big story of the night is the defense forcing 4 turnovers. When we were there on Tuesday, we both talked about it in our little post practice recording that we did. We talked about how much the defense struggled, particularly against Jonathan Taylor and the Colts running game. They completely flipped the script tonight. I thought they played pretty well. They ran around. As I mentioned, they caused 4 turnovers. You'd like to see more pressure. I still don't think we saw enough of that. But overall, I thought the defense played pretty well, particularly the secondary.
Yeah, and I will say one of those turnovers, that goal line fumble, that's already in the running for worst call of the season by the officiating crews. So, yeah, it was 4 turnovers, maybe really 3. I agree. I thought the defense was better than they were on Tuesday. And look, it's tough to gauge. There's so many backups. I thought Gabe Akis, first few reps to me looked a little out of control, almost like he was trying to do too much. Then he really seemed to settle in. On the interception, he pushed the right tackle back into Anthony Richardson, helped force a throw that maybe still could have been caught, but was not a perfect throw and was able to be intercepted. And the very next defensive snap, when the Colts are backed up in their own territory, I thought he did a great job setting the edge on an outside run and forcing it back inside. So again, early on, a little out of sorts for Gabe Akis' first few snaps. So once he settled in, you could see why they took him in the second round. I mean, he looked, I thought, pretty good and like a guy that if he keeps building, could earn himself a big role later in the season.
No, you can tell watching him in game action in person. He's twitchy. He's a really, really good speed to power converter. He can convert speed to power. And you talked about him pushing the tackle back into Anthony Richardson. You're going to see a lot of that. Now, what he's going to have to do from a developmental standpoint is be able to get off those blocks, though, because he is going to bull and dip and rip guys, and he's going to move guys, but he's also got to be able to get off those blocks and pursue the quarterback and force him to flush the pocket. We didn't see that tonight, but you see those twitchy tools that they like tonight. And I agree with you. His first 3 or 4 plays, he was a little out of control. He got up the field too much. He took himself out of position. But as his snaps went on, as the game went on, he started to play more under control, more disciplined, more fundamentally sound. And it reflected in the way that he was rushing the passer. And like you said, he essentially forced a turnover there with the way he rushed Anthony Richardson on that play. There's a lot of upside there. And look, I am surprised.
And I think you make a good point. Sorry, I think you make a good point about that next step in his development, because even when you go back and watch his tape at Illinois, it was a lot of second effort sacks or third effort tackles for loss, where he might push the tackle back into the backfield, but he wouldn't get the sack until the quarterback started to scramble, and then he would take him down. It's still a sack on the stat sheet. It's still a positive play for the defense. But you're right. That next step is then just getting off that block and getting the initial sack in the first few seconds of a play. That's going to be an interesting little thing to watch. Does he get better at that as the season goes on? Is that something he needs to carry over into next season and beyond? Because you see the tools of it there. He's just got to kind of take that next step.
Yeah, he does. And I mean, again, I think that there's a lot to like there. And I am surprised he played tonight. I wasn't sure if they were going to play him tonight, given how far behind he was. The fact that he played tonight, I think, is a very, very positive sign, both in terms of his knee, but also in terms of the fact that it looks like Mike Smith did a great job getting him caught up, and he was caught up enough that he could play tonight. Sticking with the rookies, let's talk about Caleb Lomu. I thought he looked pretty good. You know, he was downfield on that first lineman downfield penalty that the Patriots had. James Hudson had the other one. But overall, I watched him exclusively for 3 or 4 series. I thought he looked really athletic in his pass set, good footwork. His punch was good. He was balanced. The other thing that I liked is he did a really nice job on TE exchanges and picking them up and staying square and mirroring and punching. I liked what I saw from him in pass pro. In the run game, I do think he still comes out of his stance a little high, and I don't think he bends as well as he should. But overall, athletically, John, when I look at this kid, man, I'm telling you, he could play left tackle in this league. I don't think he's going to have to, assuming Will Campbell continues to develop and stays there. But he does have the length and the athleticism that if you had to move him over to the other side, he can do it. I liked what I saw from him tonight.
Yeah, this is a big boost to my self-esteem because the offensive line analysis I was going to give was the same that you just gave. So, it makes me that I saw it is the same as your eyes. And look, I'd say this, the first series the Patriots had when they kicked the field goal, the 3rd down and 6, he did get beat off the edge. Prior to that, I thought he was really good on that series. For your first series as a pro, granted it's a preseason game, but I thought he was good. They cut blocked him on the first play of the game. And then after that, it was kind of a mix of run blocking and pass pro. I do agree with you. Little like an instinct to come up high in his run blocking. We didn't see it as much in his pass pro, which was good, but it's almost like it's an instinct to just come up a little high. I think they can get that out of him as time goes by. But a lot of times with these rookies, especially O linemen, kind of do they look like they belong out there, especially as part of the unit? And he really did. I mean, the man downfield penalty, that's also something that in college, it's a 3-yard rule and they never call it. In the NFL, it's a 1-yard rule, and sometimes they'll call it tight. So that's kind of, I think, a rookie adjustment for a lot of offensive linemen, but something to keep an eye on. But yeah, I thought he did pretty well for his first time. Really, outside of that 3rd and 6 that he got beat off the edge, I thought he had a pretty good night.
Scott checks in. Scott, great to hear from you, man. As always, he says, hey, guys, coming in late here. And then he says, Alomu's on the right side, correct? Yes, Scott, he is. He played right tackle tonight, so he was on the right side. Scott, great to hear from you, man. Looking forward to hearing from you throughout the season. Thanks for checking in. Yeah, I think, look, he's only going to get better. And the run blocking piece, fundamentally, he's going to be fine. I mean, you're talking about a guy that's pushing 6'7". Those guys, as athletic as they are, the really good ones can naturally bend, and it doesn't impact them as run blockers, and they're just smooth in pass pro. He needs a little bit of work in that area, but I think it's going to happen. But my takeaway is between what I've seen at practice and what I've seen tonight, if they needed him to play, John, I think he could step in and start, and I think they'd be fine. I'm not disparaging Morgan Moses here in any way. I'm just saying I don't think there's going to be much of a drop-off if Caleb Lomu has to play for them at any point this season.
Yeah, and you mentioned the natural bend thing for guys that tall, and that's something we talked about Marcus Bryant not having last year. He did start at left tackle tonight, and that's going to be an interesting thing what they want to do there. Once we get to final cut down, do they want to keep Lomu as their primary swing tackle, or do they want him to more focus on the right side, be the 6th O lineman in 6 O line packages, but have Marcus Bryant focus on being the backup left tackle? It's going to be interesting to see how because I agree with you. I think Lomu could slide over and play on the left side if Campbell got hurt or if Campbell didn't play well. I just wonder if they're going to want to go down that route or they're going to worry about overloading him too early.
Yeah, it's a very, very good question. And they're going to have some tough decisions to make along the offensive line, specifically at offensive tackle, because the other thing is, what do you do with rookie Demetrius Crownover? I thought he looked pretty good tonight. He played on the left side. I thought he moved pretty well on that side, did a nice job against Indianapolis's wide five tilt techniques coming off the edge. So I was impressed with what I saw from him. But this is a big couple weeks here for Marcus Bryant. He
Yeah.
needs to beat out a guy like Crownover because I don't, if he doesn't have a strong finish to camp and he doesn't have a good week next week, John, he could potentially be the odd man out. Because I'll take it a step further. There are teams out there like the Philadelphia Eagles, for example, San Francisco 49ers. There are teams out there that love guys that are the size of Demetrius Crownover. I'm not sure you get him on your practice squad. If you try to make that move when it's time to cut down your roster, there's a good chance he gets swooped up. I don't think you get him through. So for me, they're going to have an interesting decision to make there. I think from an athletic fit standpoint, I kind of think Crownover might be a better fit for them than a Marcus Bryant. And Scott, by the way, checks in and says, sounds encouraging. Absolutely. I think there's a lot of positives to look
Yeah.
forward to with Caleb Lomu. But your thoughts on the Crownover Bryant conversation?
Yeah, and you go back to this time last year, John, you and I were doing shows in the preseason where Marcus Bryant was their top swing tackle backup option, but by the end of the year, he was inactive for game, and they're playing Thayer Munford as that 6-0 lineman. So it's going to be and another and I does Crownover have any versatility? And what I mean by that is, like, we saw Ben Brown leave the game with an injury tonight. Hopefully that's not serious because they do not have good depth in the interior of their offensive line, especially given Elijah Vera Tucker's injury history. If they feel like
That
Crownover
could
in a
be a
pinch,
crucial injury for them. It did
I
not in
agree.
live. It did not look good. I don't want to. I don't want to play doctor here. I don't want to speculate. But from what we saw, he was helped off the field. You hope that's not serious because, to your point, John, they are very thin inside. It's him and really no one else.
Yeah, and that's a guy in Ben Brown that has played center and he can play both guard positions, like a really valuable backup piece to have in a league that doesn't have a lot of great offensive line depth. It's not a position that you can just pick a guy up off waivers after cutdown day and you'll be okay. It's not like that. So that's why I bring up, like, if they feel like Crownover could slide inside in a pinch and play guard, maybe that gives him an edge because Bryant's not going to do that. You're right, though, about the last 2 weeks because there's a lot of physical tools Brian has that I think the Patriots would like to keep. But we talked about it last year. Doesn't bend naturally well enough. Sometimes guys get by him that shouldn't get by him. Like, if he has a really strong last couple weeks, again, those joint practices I think are going to be huge. That's an elite Eagles defensive line coming to town. If he looks good there, maybe he secures the spot. Otherwise, maybe it is Crownover gets that spot. But I think they have a really good starting offensive line. I like Lomu as their 6th lineman. Beyond that, though, there are a lot of question marks.
I want to come back to the receiver conversation real quick because Keyshawn Booty did play in this game. Matt Collins played, Efton Chisholm played, Kyle Williams played. We didn't see A.J. Brown. We didn't see Romeo Doubs. Everyone else, however, that was healthy and eligible played. Your thoughts on everybody else playing, and where do you think they go from here? Because you mentioned earlier the possibility of them carrying 7 wide receivers. I think that's hard to do in today's NFL, John, because you need to
I
carry a
agree.
minimum of 7 offensive linemen, but realistically it should be 8. Where do you think they stand there? Because he's starting to fade, in my opinion. A year ago, he was the star of training camp. Early in this camp, you can make the case he was the star of this camp. Last week plus, though, he's been fading here. Could he potentially be on his way out based on what you saw tonight?
It seems clear to me their top 3 guys are Brown, Dobbs, and Douglas, and they obviously have Douglas kind of set in the slot, Brown at the X, Dobbs at the Z, and, Brown can play some Z, whatever, but, like, those are their top 3, and then you get beyond that, they really like Mac Hollins. They've always liked him, I think, and his size is an element, even though A.J. Brown's a big guy and Dobbs a big guy, Mac Hollins is a size element they don't have. So I think Mac Hollins is gonna be there. That's already 4 guys right there. And then it comes down to, like, I would not cut Keyshawn Booty and I wouldn't trade him for a 7th round pick. but is he going to be okay being like the fourth or fifth receiver? And if he is, great. If not, then you might have to move on from him because I think that's what he's going to be. And we saw in joint practice, we saw in other training camp practices when they went 12 personnel, it was Brown and Dobbs, Brown and Douglas. I think a little bit of Brown and Hollins. Like you didn't see Kayshon Boutte with that top group either, which last year he was in a ton. So then you throw in Kyle Williams, who's the wild card in all this. I mean, one of the best release packages, if not the best on the team. You saw it in his touchdown catch tonight, but it just feels like there's way too many series where he's a passenger. So can he put it all together? And then that's 5 right there. Like now you're getting into how many guys can you realistically keep? Because it feels like their top 3 are 100% set. I think Hollins makes it. So that's 4. I I think Kyle Williams, they'll keep him around. That's 5. Like, yeah, I mean, I think 6 with Kayshon Boutte, and then that leaves, I guess, an Efton Chisholm off the list if you don't want to keep 7, but they seem to like him to you're right. It's a tough, tough decision to make. And I think a lot of it comes down to what is Kayshon Boutte's relationship with the team? Will he accept being the 4th or 5th guy? And if he will, then they'll keep him around.
Yeah, it's going to make for an interesting decision. The other thing that's important to keep in mind is Efton Chisholm can return kicks, which I think gives him a leg up in a lot of ways over somebody like a Kayshon Boutte or even a Pop Douglas. So it's going to be interesting to see what they do here because throughout the spring during our various Patriots Pulse shows, one of the things we kept talking about was they're going to make a move this summer. They're either going to cut or trade someone that's going to surprise you. I still think it's going to happen. I think you have too many bodies at wide receiver, which, by the way, we're not used to. We know that. Receiver's always been a problem position for them. We're not used to them having this type of depth. I don't see any scenario. Again, like I said earlier, given that the world we're living in today in the NFL when it comes to roster composition, I don't see any scenario where they carry 7 receivers on a week-to-week basis, John. I just think that's hard to do. That means you're going into games with only 2 tight ends, realistically speaking. You're not going to carry a third guy. That could mean you're only going into a game with legitimately Stevenson, Henderson, and Reggie Gilliam, and that's it. And for what? Because the reality is this is a big-time 11, 12 personnel league. You're not in 10 personnel a lot in this league anymore. It's not like it used to be. So, in my opinion, unless you're planning on running more 10, why do you need to carry 7 receivers? It doesn't make sense to me. There has to be at least 1, maybe even 2 odd men out.
And I would also add, given their running back situation, they're going to probably do some 21 personnel as well and get Stevenson and Henderson on the field at the same time. You mentioned, obviously, when Gilliam's out there, that's going to be naturally 21 personnel. They might even do some 22 personnel. I mean, a big package of 22 personnel with Mac Hollins as your receiver in short yardage, I think would be pretty tough to defend against, or you put A.J. Brown there too. So, yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I think you're going to keep 8 offensive linemen. And you're not going to keep 2 tight ends with one of them being a rookie who had 2 ACL tears in Eli Raritan, even though we all like him. You're going to keep a 3rd tight end. So then, yeah, I mean, I just don't see how you keep more than 6 receivers. And you might only even keep 5, but I don't see how you keep more than 6, at least to start the season, unless they're, like you said, if they're thinking of using a lot more 10 personnel than we're expecting, I just don't see them keeping more than 6 receivers. And yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. It just doesn't. There's going to be an odd man out. And again, I know that Vrabel bandied about the idea of them possibly carrying 7 receivers. I don't see it. I don't buy it. There's going to be an odd man out. And look, I agree with you. I think they should hold on to Kayshon Boutte, but I'm beginning to think they may move him. If they feel that they can get fair enough compensation, i.e. an early to mid day 3 pick, I think he's a goner. I think they move on.
Yeah, and he's in a weird spot too because 2020, one of the best freshman receivers in the country at LSU, but because of injuries, because some off-field stuff, fell all the way to the 6th round. This might be his only chance to get a big contract in the NFL. Like if you're him, do you really want to sit as the 4th or 5th guy on the depth chart, even on a good team? I don't know if there's that fit there. Again, maybe keep him around the next 2 weeks, see if there's an injury or some team wants to really up their price. But again, if he's willing to be the fourth guy, I keep him. If not, then they might have to move him.
Scott says bring back Troy Brown. Apparently, he saw an interview with him and he wants him back. I don't think
My
they're going to bring
all-time
Troy
favorite
Brown
Patriot.
back. Yeah.
It's my all-time favorite Patriot, Troy Brown.
Really? Interesting
Hey,
fact there.
people forget 2001 Patriots. Troy Brown had 101 catches that year. People said they had no weapons. 101 catches. And David Patton was pretty good too.
Yeah. Very underrated player for sure. All right, before we wrap it up here, just some final overall thoughts here on tonight. Again, sucks coming out of it with a 13-13 tie because the Patriots controlled most of this game. But again, this is life when it comes to preseason football. Some final thoughts here as we wrap it up.
I'd build on what you just said. This is a nice little lesson for the Patriots. This is a game they should have won by 2 touchdowns, but because of their own penalties, they took points off the board and missed field goals, took points off the board. Like, you got to have the whole operation sharp and organized because there was a lot of positives in this game. And I would go back to Tuesday and kind of lump those 2 days together. The Patriots are the better team at that joint practice, and that was with starters out there. And I know you and I talked about the Patriots defense struggling part of that joint practice. That's real. It happened. But on the whole, they were the better team. And you just look at the last 2 summers, 2 years ago, they were the worst team in the NFL and had an awful joint practice. Last summer, they were better. This summer, first joint practice, I think they're clearly the better team. And they played pretty well in a preseason game and just shot themselves in the foot to prevent a win. So a lot of positives to take away, but the penalties, things like that, just things that have to be cleaned up that they know, we know, and we'll see between now and the joint practice next week with Philly how much progress they've made.
The penalties and the missed kicks are going to help this football team long term because Mike Vrabel can address those things when he meets with his guys tomorrow. And I think that's important because you hit 1,000-foot home run here. They win this game tonight probably by 10 to 14 points if they play cleaner football and they don't miss 3 field goals. So, yes, it's a preseason game, but if you're Vrabel, if you're the coaching staff, you almost have to treat this like a regular season game, John, where you say, listen, we're gonna lose games on a week-to-week basis if we do the stupid things we did tonight. So whether you're on this team now or whether you're going to be on this team a month from now, the bottom line is we can't play like this because if we play like this, we will lose against Seattle. We will lose most of our games during the regular season. So I think, again, it's a preseason game, but there's a lot that you could take away from it in terms of the importance of playing clean football and making sure that you execute in key times, something the Patriots did not do tonight. And as a result, they end up with a 13-13 tie with the Indianapolis Colts. Real quick before we go, just some thoughts on next week. Philadelphia Eagles in here on August 19th and 20th. What are you looking for in those 2 joint practices?
Yeah, one of them is definitely going to be a high intensity day. I wonder if it'll be the second one, but yeah, it's a huge test for the Patriots. Best or one of the best defensive lines in football, a great defense overall. The Eagles have, I mean, Jalen Carter, I think, is already a future Hall of Famer, and I know he's a young player. I just think he's that good. And then offensively, I know they don't have A.J. Brown anymore. They still have a great offensive line. They still have Saquon Barkley. They still have Devonta Smith. And it's a new OC there, maybe doing some new things.
Dontavian Wicks has had a really good camp. I'm glad the Packers traded him.
Yeah, right. And as a stockholder, I'm sure you are. This to me is a great test for the Patriots. This is the Eagles are a team, and you can hate Jalen Hurts, you can like Jalen Hurts. That is a Super Bowl caliber roster around him. So that's going to be a great test for them. I'm really excited to see it because can they build on what they did against the Colts, or do they stagnate a little bit? And we talk about that. But I think it's an awesome test coming up. I can't wait to see it.
Yeah, I think this is going to be more of a barometer, more of a litmus test than what we saw this week with the Indianapolis Colts. I'm also curious to see what their playing time and their rotations look like next Saturday night. You'd have to think this is the one game where the starters are going to play, if not a couple of series, maybe the first quarter. This is the most work they're going to get all preseason. So I'm curious to see who plays and how much they play next weekend. But this will be a real litmus test for this Patriots team in terms of how they stack up against the elite teams in the NFL. Scott checks back in. He says we're undefeated. He also says if we go undefeated this season, you heard it here first on your show. Yes, it will be the first time we hear that, Scott, and the last, because I'm also going to double down on your point and say they are not going undefeated. So
Yeah, I don't think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Yeah. All right, John, great stuff, man. Look, I'm hoping we can do this at various points during the season. TBD. I know that you've got a lot of other commitments as well, but love doing this show with you, and I know the fans enjoy when you and I get together and talk ball. So let's do this again soon, my friend.
Always a pleasure, John. And like I said, looking forward to a really exciting joint practice coming up next week.
Yeah, it should be good. And again, like I said, it'll be a real good barometer for the Patriots and where they're at this point in training camp. That'll do it for this episode of the Patriots Pulse postgame show. Again, the Patriots tie the Indianapolis Colts tonight in preseason game number 1, 13-13. For John Lyons, I'm John Sarianides. We will be back with you next time. Until then, peace.